who would be joining soon.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, all the best, team.
Thank you, ma'am. So I'll be sharing my screen now.
Sure.
Okay. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. I'm able to hear an echo, ma'am. Hello?
Can everyone else go on mute? Only when the presenter is talking, only his speaker should be on. Rest everyone on mute. Go ahead, Deepak.
Okay. So, welcome, everyone. My name is Deepak Bharadwaj, and today we are excited to share our journey with the Pratian technology and present to you our innovative new application that makes booking an appointment for your pet easy and convenient. The application name is called as Petsy. So let's quickly go through the agenda of the presentation. First, we'll be discussing an introduction to what the PETC project is, and then we'll see about the project goals that we are trying to achieve, and then the delivery landscape for this project, which includes several iterations of development, testing, to ensure that the final product meets the need for our target audience, which is the pet owners. We will also be agiling methodologies to ensure that we are able to quickly adapt to the changes and feedbacks that we receive. The front end and back end that we have used here is Angular and Spring together. We have been able to create a fast, responsive, and secure application that is easy to use and maintain. The use of these popular framework also ensures that the application is compatible with the latest technology, so it can be used by the other users and also be easier for us to deploy in the cloud-based infrastructure so that it is easily accessible anywhere at any time. Now, talking about the functional view, our platform will include features such as appointment scheduling, appointment tracking, medical history, documentation, etc. And also, we'll also be incorporating a new feature that allows the pet owner to connect directly to the vet via an appointment over this platform. We'll have an in-detail explanation about this in the further slides. And also, in the end, we'll also have a code walkthrough wherein we'll demonstrate how we have implemented these features and what technologies we have used. We'll be looking forward how the application works from behind the screen and what principles and framework that we have used to achieve this. And in the end, we'll also share our experience with the Pratian technology during the training course and then end the session with the thank you note. So, what is PETSI? The PETSI project aims to develop an innovative solution for pet owners to easily track and manage their pet health and well being. We understand that the pet owners have a very busy life and want to make it as convenient as possible for them to take care of their pet. So, our goal is to create a platform that allows the pet owners to keep a track on their pet's health, medication, vaccination, appointment, and other important health information, everything in one place. So, this was our primary motto of our project. Now, handing over to Shreyas.
Yeah, good morning. I will be explaining the delivery landscape. So first, we first started off with the product owner interaction. So product owners are responsible for defining the features and requirements of a product, making decisions about its development and release. They will be our guides, and they will be correcting whatever changes from inception to delivery. Yeah. So they first, the product owner came and briefed us about the requirements and what is to be done. The second one we did was competitor and domain research. So veterinary clinic applications are designed to help veterinary clinics manage their operations and provide better care for the patients. So these applications include various features. So we had done somewhat of a market research. With like some of the popular applications include Vetstoria, Vetspace, and Vetsuccess. These applications are generally cloud-based and can be accessed with any device with an internet connection. So next one was the UX Figma prototype. So after the first two, we did the Figma prototypes. So this Figma prototype was given to us by Pratian. So Figma is a popular user interface and UX design tool that allows designers to develop prototypes. So based on this prototype, we developed our architecture and design. So for this application, we have gone for a monolithic architecture. So while developing, we also followed the agile methodology. So agile is a framework for managing software developments using agile. So in Scrum, the product is divided into sprints, which are typically of 2 to 4 weeks. But since our project was only of 2 weeks, we only had one sprint. So it is for sprint is basically for cross development, for cross integration. So in this sprint method, we had the product and sprint backlog planning, and this for estimation, we have used a T-shirt model. So T-shirt model is popular estimation methodology in software development. So it uses relative sizing to estimate the complexity of a task and designate it as small, medium, large, or extra large, depending upon the complexity of the task. So after all of this was done, we started off with the development. Firstly, we developed the backend by using this Figma as the reference and this architecture class diagrams. So after we developed the backend, we unit tested the backend. After unit testing, we moved to front-end development. After we did front-end development, we did integration. So while doing all of this, we have used CI/CD. So for continuous integration, we have used Git, and we have conducted code reviews regularly. And we have used Sonar for our code quality testing. After this report, we have got the based on this report, we have done the testing and bug fixing. And these are our ceremonies which we were doing throughout, like reviews and retrospectives. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah. So these are some of the sprint backlogs. Like I said, we had the T-shirt model. So we had designated each task as each subtab. We had divided the entire project into subsystems and sub-features. So each of them, we had designated the particular T-shirt size based on the T-shirt model. And we had given the estimation and description of the project, and we were working like this. Next slide. Yeah, it totally in Petsy after deployment, we have around 54 features, 31 screens, 14 components, 9 Git repositories of various teams, 10 plus tables in the database, 62 branches in Git, and we have totally released it 5 times based on incremental updates, and we have around 55 classes, and we have over 5,000 lines of code in total for the entire project. Next.
Hi everyone, this is Nandini. I'm going to explain team collaboration, how team collaboration helps us to complete this project according to the team. And in here we have team collaboration like business analyst, architect, and team tech lead and Scrum Master, developers and DevOps and QA team and IT team. In business analyst, they are going to explain what is the requirement for the project and how we are going to assign each module to everyone to implement the project according to the requirements of the clients. Okay, in architecture design, we implemented a class diagram according to the requirements, how the class is integrated with one another according to the requirements. In tech lead helps us to design the modules according to the requirements and class diagrams and implement the APIs for that. In Scrum Master, which is helps us to team enhance and streamline the processes in which they achieve their goals according to the APIs. Developers are those who are implemented the code according to class diagram. In DevOps team helps us to deploy the project, which is implemented by all the developers, and QA team, quality assurance team, that helps us to enhance the product requirement and testing, which will helps to implement or to overall quality of project. IT team, they are managers to how in every process of project implementation, they helps us to what are the requirements are completed according to the client and all. They are the team collaboration which is done overall project implementation. Next in functional view, actually we focused on dashboard and appointment in the dashboard. Actually, we have view and add appointments, and appointments we have edit and delete and everything. Then Stebin will continue over next slide.
So hi everyone, this is Stebin. So this is the basic Figma model which has been given to us by our lead. So in authentication, like once you enter your email and password, it get logged into the Pexi application. And next slide. So yeah, so this is the Figma model for dashboard. As you can see, where you have to display all your data, like total number of appointments, cancelled appointments, approved, pending appointments, total number of vets and pets. All this data we are getting from the microservice of appointments, vet and pet team. And as you can see in the upcoming appointments, like once you take up all the appointments, it will get stored in the approved appointments. And the right side, you can see the list of vets available. And once you click on the view all doctors, it will go to the vet UI, and you can see all the list of doctors there. So next slide is the new appointment, like to take new appointment. And this appointment UI also is working with 3 microservices: appointment, patient, and vet, to get all the data. And once you add all these appointments, it will be stored in the pending appointments. And next slide is about view appointments. So all these upcoming appointments which get approved, it will be stored in the view appointments. So next slide is requirement documentation, where you can see all the features required for the dashboard team and appointment team. And next slide is tech highlights, which I'll hand over to Vinay.
Hello, good
So
morning.
now we have the, continue.
Yeah, I'll be continuing with tech highlights. Next slide, Deepak. Yeah, in backend, we have used layered structure, services, and APIs, ORM, DP programming, error handling, and exceptions using loggers, and unit testing and database PGSQL. And in front-end technologies, we have used Bootstrap, responsive UI, Angular UI programming, TypeScript, Angular, and reusable components, and modular folder structure. The next slide, Deepak. Yeah, coming to the system architecture, we are creating a web page here, that is web server client, and the web client acts as browser, and the browser will communicate directly with server, that is Azure server. So every time when you're clicking first time from your system, it goes directly to browser to server. So that is all about system architecture and how it is connected to server and browser. And next slide will be continued by Shashank.
Yeah, good morning. Am I audible? So the tech stack which we have used in our project are shown below. So for front end, we have used Angular, which runs on HTML and TypeScript mainly. And we have used Visual Studio Code for code editor for the front end. And for API testing tools, we have used Swagger and Postman. And the version control used here is Git. And for backend, we have used Java framework, which is known as Spring Boot, to develop all the REST APIs. And for database, we have used PostgreSQL. And for building our application, we have used Jenkins. So Deepak, next slide. So this is the architecture flow of a project basically. And the Swagger, as you can see here, is the client. And this is basically the REST API architecture, and the data is exchanged through JSON format in this architecture back and forth. So the client layer starts from the Swagger. Swagger sends the request to the server, which starts from the controller here. And the controller receives the request from the Swagger, which has all the APIs layer. And the controller uses service layer to determine the business logic of the application, like business logic in the sense how our application should function, all the exceptions and all the validation and other complex calculations is provided by the service layer, which implements the business logic for our application. And the service layer is in turn auto add to the repository layer here. The repository layer fetches the data and posts the data into the database, and basically it interacts with the database, and it supplies it to the service layer, where service layer applies the business logic and supplies the data back to the controller layer, and the response is returned in form of JSON to the DTOs. So why we use DTOs here is that, like, we need to disclose all the sensitive information coming from the server, such as password, users' personal information, and all. So DTO filters out all this personal information and sends it back to the client, which is Swagger here, in form of JSON. So this is basically the architecture flow of a project. So next slide. So this is the backend folder structure of a project here. So here, as you can see, there is in the SRC main Java, we have created all the packages, appointment where our Spring Boot application runs. And this is the controller package where we have provided the controller. And next is the controller DTOs. And next is the entities where we provide all the information. And we pass it around to all the layers of the REST API architecture, like repository, controller, service layer, the entities. And next is the exception package, which handles all the exceptions for our project. And then we have use mappers. And then there's repository package, and then there's a service interface. And then in turn, there's a service IMPL, which implements the service interface here. So this is basic. And then next we have used for unit testing, we have categorized in SRC test /Java, where we write our unit test cases for the backend application. And then we have loggers here, pet.txt, which displays all the logs to keep track of how our application is running. And then there's pom.xml, where we have our Maven dependency. So our build tool for the backend is Maven. So where all our dependencies are present in the project.
Thank you, Shashank. And I'll be further, Rekha here. I'll be further taking you over the architecture of the appointment or the flow of the project. So firstly, we'll be talking about the controller class. So basically, this is where the client HTTP request will be sent to, and this is the final destination where the web request can reach. After being invoked, the controller method starts the process, the web request by interacting with the service layer to complete the work that needs to be done. And here we have written different API paths that are created to get, put, post, and delete the details. We have injected the dependencies by using the annotation @AutoWired, and we have used @CrossOrigin to run on the different servers. So here we have written different APIs to get we have written different APIs to get, put, post, and delete. So here we have created a response entity which will perform, which represents the whole HTTP response. And moving on, we have a service layer. This is where the business logics are written and the custom exceptions are handled here. This service layer facilitates the communication between the controller and the persistence layer. Next slide. And next, yeah. Here, this is the controller and service layer for our dashboard, where we have written the different APIs to count the total number of appointments and the cancelled appointments, approved appointments, completed appointments, pending, and the pet DTOs. Likewise, we have written for the service layer also to get the total appointment count and to get the total approved appointments, the cancelled appointments, pending, and completed appointments. Next slide. Moving on, we have our repository layer. So repository layer is basically here is an interface class that extends the JPA repository. And this class or a component encapsulates the logic required to access the data sources stored in our database or the external sources. Here we have used the annotation @query to write our JQL queries, and we have put up the method. So the first one @query, we are selecting A from appointment, where A to get the appointment pending appointment status, and we have called up the method here. And next layer is our DTO. So basically DTO stands for data transfer object. Why this requirement is because when you're working on a remote interface, each call is very expensive. So as a result, you need to reduce the number of calls. So the solution to create the DTO that can hold all the data for the call. And or in simple terms, we can tell to communicate between the two systems like the API and server without potentially exposing the sensitive information. Next slide, please. Okay, moving on, we have our entity classes and our mapper classes. So basically this entity class represents a table in a relational database, and each entity instance corresponds to the row in that table. And here we have created an entity class for our appointment where the contents are the appointment ID, pet details, department, where details, date, time, status, pet issues, etc. And we have also created an enum class for our pet gender and status. And the next layer is a mapper class, which is also an interface. And we have a mapper class to map it with the other object. And this enables us to relate objects of our application to the data in our database. And the functionality of all this will be explained during the code walkthrough. Thank you.
Thanks, Rekha. I'm Kirtana. I'll be taking over with the unit testing. So basically, when we work on a project for a client, one of the main important expectation or the aspect which the client expects is the quality of the project which we have done. So that in turn is achieved by unit testing. Here in our project, we have done unit testing on the service layer where we do have all the APIs. So we are using JUnit 5 and Mockito, which is one of the inbuilt frameworks in the Spring Boot itself. We are using those frameworks for our unit testing. So here we can see we do have one of the classes which is inbuilt created when we create the Spring Boot project. So where we'll be writing the unit test cases. So as we are working on the service implement layer and the repository, so we want to invoke the methods which are present in the service implement. So we are using the annotation at inject mocks to invoke the APIs which are present, and a repository will be like external dependency in the implementation layer, service implementation layer. So we want to mock it. So mocking in the sense we are using our own data instead of accessing to the database data which is present there. So for that, we are using mocking and we are representing it with @mock annotation to the appointment repository. And here we can see the public void test get all appointments. Here, this is one of the testing test methods for one of the APIs to get all the appointments. So here we are marking it with the annotation @test, which makes the this method like visible to the JUnit 5 that we are going to test this method. So here what we are doing is we are using one of the inbuilt methods in the Mockito, that is when and find all, for the mocking purpose. And then the validation we are doing using assert equals, which is also inbuilt in the Mockito, where we are comparing the actual and the expected results. So this is the same pattern we have used for the rest of the APIs also. Next slide. Yeah, this is the continuation of the APIs which we have done, and we have given order also, like the order of execution of the test cases. So we are using @order annotation for that purpose. Next slide. So here comes like here's the JSON data we have used for the sending and receiving receiving the API responses. We are using JSON data format. So here we have we are working on the Postman and we are using JSON data format for this purpose. And then next slide onwards, Deepak will be continuing.
Thanks, Kirtana. It's Meghna. I'm going with the folder structure of Angular. We are using Angular. It is a JavaScript framework for a single page application. In the beginning, Angular folder structure, coming into the Angular folder structure, when we create a new Angular file, automatically this app component will be created, and it can have multiple components we can create in the Angular file. In this project, corresponding to in this project, we have created many components like appointments, pets, and etc. In each components, we can see that they are specified into some files like CSS, HTML file, and TypeScript files. And coming into the models, it has one of the files called module file, like in a TypeScript and services layer. And in the components file, we can see that CSS for styling and HTML for a web page design and TypeScript for connecting the components and specifying with the modules. And next slide. This is the layer structure architecture for a dashboard. First, for the viewing part, in HTML file, we can design with the how many total appointments and how many are pending appointments using the HTML files. And controller, we can declare functions, and we can map into the HTTPS URLs in this file. And corresponding to the controllers, it will next go to the service folder. Next slide. In service file, we can declare each of the functions, and we are mapping with the HTTP module, and these URLs are global URLs. Just we are integrating with this URL links with the corresponding variables and with the functions to count how many appointments are approved, cancelled. Like totally, we have to get the total count of that URLs. Next part will continue one of my teammate.
Thank you, Meghana. I'll be further explaining the workflow of the flow of the project. So moving on, the first layer which we have created is our entity class.
Hello, am I audible? Yeah. So yeah, I'll tell a little bit of briefing about Git. So Git is a version control system for software development. It helps teams of developers collaborate on projects. Okay. By allowing easy management of different versions of the code. So we have used a Git repository for both the front end and back end. So in front end, we had different branches. For each team had separate versions of their front end in their own components. So while integrating this gap, we have used Git as our repository for version control. Next slide. Yeah. So these are the commits, like whatever we did in our appointment module. So you can see the description as well. Sorry, I think I wasn't audible. Yeah, so this is our history, Git repository commits. So you can see here that at how Git has helped. So there was a bug around here, so I took down the entire code base. Migrated to Spring Boot version 2.7.6 and repushed the code. So it has helped in that sense. So we have some of the basic commands we used were git. Some of the basic commands we have used are like git init, git config, git commit, and git push, git clone, and all of that. So we have pulled the changes from the database. Whenever we are working in separate teams of 6, we have pulled the code and then changed it and pushed it again. So that is how we are using it. Okay, next slide. So these are like the Git files, whichever we had this. Okay, next slide. this is PG admin. So we used Azure. We were using MySQL initially. Since MySQL there was compatibility issues with Azure, we migrated to PG admin. So PG admin is like a SQL database. When PG admin is Postgres, basically Postgres on the cloud with Azure with SQL as the syntax. So we can see that there are databases and there are tables over here. BT appointment, this is our table. So likewise, all the other teams have their version of their database over here on the cloud, and we are accessing it through the PG admin application in Windows. Yeah, next one. Yeah. So this is Sonar. So SonarQube is an open source platform for continuous code quality inspection. It analyzes programming languages such as Java, C#, and JavaScript, and identifies potential bugs like bugs, vulnerabilities, and security hotspots. So SonarQube is basically integrates with various development tools such as Jenkins, Git, and Azure DevOps to allow automated code analysis as part of development workflow. So basically, when we are using Git, we are using it for continuous integration. So for continuous deployment, we are using Jenkins, Azure DevOps, and SonarQube for inspection of code quality.
Shashank, I have one question over here. Can you go back to the previous slide? So why the code coverage is showing 0%?
Sir, actually, we just ran it in code coverage.
Because I do see you guys have written unit test cases, right? So it shouldn't be 0%, right?
Yes, sir. So actually, I'm Shreyas. I'm using Shashank's system. Yeah.
Anyone having any idea why do we have this 0% code coverage over here?
Sir,
Okay,
I think we had problems for unit tests. So that's why.
Okay.
Code walkthrough will be explained by Shashank and Suchitra.
Okay, I'll stop sharing now.
So is the screen visible? Good. So entity class will be explained by Rekha.
Yeah, the first layer is our entity class. Yeah. So here we have created an entity class for appointments. Where we have used entity annotation to represent our table. We have given entity annotation where we generate all the getters and setters, hash codes, and toString methods. We have used annotations for all our constructors and noargs to get our parameterized and non-parameterized constructors. And the instance variables that we have created here are the appointment ID, pet details, wet details, date, time, more details, documents, status, and our appointment status. So we have used generated value to generate to give an auto value for our ID, and we have given generic generator. So basically, we are using this annotation to define what or to manipulate the auto generated value. Then we have mapped this one-to-one relation where one pet can have one pet details. Likewise, even for the wet, we have one wet can have one wet details, and we have created an enum class for our appointment status. I'll be showing that. So yeah, we have created an enum for our appointment status where the appointment can be completed, pending, approved, and cancelled. These are the enums which we have given for our appointment status. Likewise for gender, again we have created an enum class for that, which is like a male and female. The user can select it like either a male or a female. Moving on, the next layer will be explained by Shashank.
Yeah, so I'll be carrying on with the service layer here. So here we have used a service interface. So yeah, we have used an appointment service interface, and we have implemented all the methods of this interface in a package called appointment service IMPL, so that loose coupling of our application can be promoted. So yeah, I've used the annotation @ service here to indicate that it is a part of the REST API architecture and it is a service layer which implements all our business logic. And I have auto-wired appointment repository. Like, so auto-wired in the sense means I'm injecting the object directly in the service layer without by the annotation @ auto-wired. So in the backend, Spring IOC container takes care of all of this auto-wiring job. And similarly, I have auto-wired appointment card mapper, appointment list mapper, appointment pet mapper, and appointment web mapper and dashboard mapper to provide it to the other teams, the DTOs. So, and I've used Logger also here to log to keep track of all the events, what's happening in when the application runs. So first, the first service is get all appointments. I'm giving the info here in the log, and I'm using the appointment repository. I'm finding all the list of all the appointments. So I'll show the implementation once. So this is there in the appointment repository, which extends JPA repository method here. So this is the inbuilt method of find all is a built-in method of JPA repository. We can perform all CRUD operations when we use this JPA repository in our applications. Yeah, so the next method, and if there's the appointment list is empty, again, this is an inbuilt method of JPA repository where I'm checking if the appointment is empty. I'm logging an error message that there are no appointments available, and I'm returning the appointments. And then I'm fetching the appointment by appointment ID here. And I'm logging the message what's happening here, and I'm checking if it exists by ID. If it's null, I'm printing out a log error message saying that invalid appointment ID, and I'm throwing an exception that appointment not found exception. Or if this is not null, I'm deleting the particular appointment by the ID, and I'm returning the message deleted here. So the take up appointment, next is the take up appointment method, and I'm giving an error message that appointment cannot be taken up if it does not exist by ID. If appointment is null, yeah, I'm printing the exception that appointment is not found exception. Or else, if appointment is not null, I'm getting the appointment status from the this the enum here. And I'm checking for pending status here. So we can take up appointments if it's pending. It will be explained in more detail in the person who's presenting the UI there. So if appointments is pending, we can take up the particular appointment. Yeah. So I'm checking if the status is if it's not pending, I'm printing the exception that appointment is not pending and it cannot be approved. Else, if it's the status is pending, I'm setting the status to be approved here, and I'm saving the appointment using the appointment repository inbuilt method called save, and I'm returning the approved status here in this method. So next is take up appointment. So I'm getting the appointment by appointment ID using the repository, and I'm checking if the appointment is null. If appointment is null, I'm throwing appointment not found exception here, and I'm getting the appointment status here using the enum. And I'm saving the appointment again using repository layer, and I'm returning the status as approved. So this is the next method is get all appointments by card. So I'm creating a list of card view DTO here, and I'm initializing again an array list of appointments, and I'm finding using the repository inbuilt method. I'm finding all the appointments, and I'm using for each loop to iterate over the appointment instance, and I'm using the convert to DTO method, adding the card view DTO. I'm converting the converted DTO. I'm adding it to the card view appointment DTO list, which I've created here, and I'm returning the appointment card view DTO. The DTOs will be explained again by my teammate Keerthana further in the upcoming packages. So shall I? There are many methods in the service layer. Should I carry on, or shall we proceed to the DTOs layer?
Yeah, I think we can move on to DTO.
Yes, I'll be moving on with the DTOs. Shashank, can you go to controller DTO class?
Yeah.
Okay, here we have created 5 DTOs, which was required for our module appointment. So one of the classes of the DTO is appointment card view DTO, where we wanted to display a particular details of the appointment itself. So here we are using a data annotation for the getters and setters, and no args or logs for the constructors. So here we do have appointment dashboard DTOs, which is to be used by the dashboard module, and we do have a list view in our front end. For that, we have written some of the entity variables we have declared there, and we do have appointment pet DTOs, where we do have the some of the pet variables which is required to display in the front end, and we do also have the vet DTOs, which has some of the information of the vet module. Can you go to the mapper class? So here we can see we have created an interface appointment for the appointment card mapper DTO, where it is at mapper is an map struct, which makes the interface as a mapper class. So we are using at mapper annotation, and we are mapping the variables which we have declared in the DTOs. We are mapping it in order to map the web request to the specific handler classes, that is appointment card view DTO. So here we can see the source appointment.petDetail.pet name and its target pet name, where we are mapping from the entity appointment to the DTO class. So, and this interface implementation, which gets which gets created inbuilt in the project when we give the Maven update. So here we can see it in the target generated sources, where we have the implementation. Yeah, here we have the implementation of the variables or of the mappers which were in the interface class. So here's the implementations of those variables. And that's all with the DTOs, and for the front end, Suchitra of my team will be continuing to the front end. Thank you.
Good morning, sir. Is my screen is visible?
Yeah, it's visual. Yeah.
This is out. This is how our Outlook page looks like. Here we are generating a appointment ID as automatically by using UID. So we kept that field as read only. Yeah, here we have appointment ID. We kept that field read only. Why? Because we are generating a appointment ID as auto generated. So here we are fetching a data from parent name and parent pet name, clinic name and department are we are fetching from another microservices. Yeah. Once we input to the pet name, it's not showing. Once we give the clinic name, clinic time, opening time and closing time will be out of fetch. Like once we give an vet name, department will be out of fetch. Like that way we implemented for pet also. Right now that's not working. Why? Because they deleted their database. I think so. Uh, we are taking input for date and time. If
Is
we
the way
give
if you can check, so how this pet details are getting populated? Is it via an API call?
yes sir,
So can you check
I'm
if
showing the code.
no, I'm asking, is there a way you can check that if the API call is which is being made to that particular API, which fetches the pet detail, is it returning okay or some kind of error?
No sir, yesterday it was working actually.
Okay, so you're saying there's no data in the table
Yes, sir.
itself?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I think they have deleted the table. It was too populated. There was a lot of data. I think they have deleted the data because we are getting the other details fine. Just this one is not working.
What
I can.
database are you using behind the scenes?
Sir, they're using the same one. Azure with PG SQL, PG Postgres. So I think they've deleted because the clinic and vet details are getting fetched.
To load resource.
Okay, I think it's because of the company VPN as well. I don't know. Might be.
So where is this database hosted? Is it outside BT network?
Yes, sir. It's outside. It's yeah. I'll just show you the URL. Sir. It's here, right here. It's outside, I guess. It's in this environment.ts here. This is the URL.
Is this deployed on cloud?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
But this seems
This
to
is
be some
deployed
private IP, right? What you're showing here. It's not a HTTP IP because others are HTTPS, but this is a private IP.
Okay. Okay. I think this thing is not secure, I guess. So that's why it's not working here, I guess. That's what I've been told.
You have a cost error. I think you have a cost error as well for this. Cost policy error is also there. It's because of HTTP, I believe.
Yes, sir. Because of HTTP, I guess. Because the other one is secure. Pet teams. Yeah, it's not secure. They had told yes, sir. While deploying front end, they were telling that pet one is not secure. I think otherwise, once we selected this drop down, this department, pet owner name, pet owner email, and phone number were getting fetched automatically. So and this clinic, when you select this clinic, we are getting the timings, and yes, we have when this clinic is from 10 to 2, just 24 hours format. So if you select anything that is outside the bounds of the clinic, that is, it's going to throw an error showing the clinic is closed. So we have implemented that from clinic and from vet as well. And once you add the details over here, so see, now we can't add appointment. So I think we will not be able to
add this appointment because there is no pet as such. Okay. So you can continue with the front end code walk through, Suchitra.
If you try to give the date like 29, it will display the error, sir. Appointment only booked up to 2 days. If you try to book the appointment like randomly, it will show the invalid message. Like how it works, we authenticated 2 fields here, date and time. Edit also, we can edit only 2 fields here. Once we book an appointment, ID will be auto fetched. This is due to binding a data. Only we can able to edit the date only in edit option. We have 2 views here, card view and list view. Card view is this one and list view will be this one. We can able to delete the appointment also. Like this way it will work, sir. Next part will be continued by the Tarun.
Deepak, share the screen. Okay, I'll be explaining this dashboard. These are the APIs used for the dashboard to view the total appointments and the cancelled appointments and for completed appointments and for approved pending. And we can also view the total waits and the total pets. So now if we can see here that the pending appointments, the number is 3. So if we take up one appointment here, if we confirm one appointment over here, so automatically the pending will reduce to 2, like approved will get raised and pending will reduce to 2. So this we have did by calling the APIs. So this is the take up button, and if we click on the view all, we can see the upcoming appointments. And this is the to view all the doctors. So if we click this button, we can see all the doctors present over here. Since they are not available over here, so it is showing in red color. So this I'll be explaining in code part. So firstly, we have to create one service file. Here we are setting all the URLs to this particular API variables. So like URL wait count, pet count, and URL for total appointments, approved, pending, like all this. And we are using HTTP client module over here. So and I'm setting the client module, like I'm creating one object called HTTP. So here I am declaring all the methods over here. I'm using this return type, this dot HTTP dot get this dot URL waits. This is the variables where we have set all the URLs for this. So this will be all the methods over here. And coming to component.ts file, here we will be importing the dashboard service. And here we are creating few variables and we are setting it to type any. So it may be of any type, not only a number like that. So to view all the total pets, total weights, appointment count, approved appointment count. So these are the variables declared over here. And I'm calling those these methods over here using this syntax, this dot API dot get total pets. This is the method, and I'm using dot subscribe function over here. So basically dot subscribe function is to access APIs through subscribing the API plans. So it's nothing but to fetch the APIs, we need to use this dot subscribe, and I'm setting these variables into the result, and I'm printing that result in the console. So these are the few methods which I'm calling over here. So these are the few API methods. So in HTTP, sorry, in HTML file, I am actually binding those variables. So if you can see here, so this is the binding, like cancelled appointments, approved appointments. So here we can see the pending appointments, which I have binded over here in HTML5. So this is how API binding, like integration has done. And further Deepak will explain. Sorry, Shreyas will explain.
Yes, sir. Hello. Sir, now I'm able to fetch the pet details. I connected to my local hotspot. I'll just share my screen. I think it was related to that issue in BT internet. With BT internet, it wasn't working. So once you come to this pet details over here, it's going to show the pet details in the drop down. Am I audible, right?
Yeah, you're audible. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. So I'm able to pet this, get all the fetch details and map them to this drop down list. So I've mapped it in using two-way binding over here in this. So once I select this, the object will be binded, and from the binded object, all of these fields will be fetched. So if I select this, like if I select this pet, you can see the pet owner name, pet owner phone number, and owner email. It's getting auto fetched. And once you select any clinic and particular vet and the particular like timings within the bounds, and just enter any details like and can add appointment, it's going to add the appointment is going to be successfully added. So once come to the appointment, then it will be reflected in the dashboard. And that is going to be shown by the dashboard team. Yes, sir. So you have any doubts, sir, in this? In appointments?
No, that's fine. Yeah, thank you.
It's fine. Okay.
Okay, so I'll be presenting my screen again now. Okay, so we just had a code walkthrough now, and this was the URL. So if you have any questions regarding the code, you can ask, sir. We have a QA session now. Hello.
Deepak, I think you can go ahead. I'm not sure. Selva, any questions? Okay, I think you can go ahead. You can go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, sir. So we had a very wonderful experience during the training. So I'll just give a brief recap about the whole training session. So initially we started with the basic Java, and then we went on to core Java. And after core Java, we had a few training on Hibernate and then Spring. And then so first we started with the backend, then we eventually move on to the front end. So during the whole course of our training, we had knowledge sessions wherein we were taught about the basic concepts of all the fields, and then we had virtual learning. And after we learned every concept, every week we had hands-on we had hands-on coding, and then we had weekly presentations which we had to present it to the BT team, and then we had peer reviews also. And we did a lot of projects, and every time we learned a new concept, there was a project assigned to us. So almost every week we were indulged in one of the project. And after we were thorough with the concepts, we had a few assignments to be done, and then we had evaluations, hackathons, and feedbacks also. So some of the challenges that we faced during the during the training was we had really long days, tough days sometimes. So we had to work all day and all night to get few concepts right. And there were a lot of intense discussions also during the training phase, and we were really happy to be able to build a Petsy project like this. And these were some of the virtual sessions that we had offline. So me along with the teams, we were connecting on Teams, and we used to have a lot of meets like this when we were in the running phase of the code. So, and these were the trackers that we used, hands-on trackers, so that every time we learned a concept, there was a tracker that was assigned in the Excel, and we had to fill in the fields wherein it was whether if it was pending or if it's closed or if it's yet to be done, so that they could track the progress of all the individuals. So this is just a screenshot of that. So this is the tracker from the Excel. So I would like to thank in the end for Sindhuja P, ma'am, who was the project manager here, and Triveni ma'am, Vishal B sir, Yunus, and Soumya ma'am, who were the teachers for us. And also I would like to thank the trainers, the tech leads, the DevOps team, the management, the project managers, and a lot of other teams who helped us in achieving our goals. And we are really happy to learn able to learn a lot of things in the span of 2.5 months. So I really believe that overall our experience working on the PETZ project as well as during the training session was extremely rewarding. Thank you, sir. So if there's anything from your end, you can say, sir.
Well, I think thanks everyone for this presentation, and I believe this was very well very well developed project, and I hope you guys would have learned a lot about the technology like Java backend and Angular, which is quite frequently used to build application. So one quick question I'll have, because in the beginning of session, somebody told it was built on a monolithic architecture. So I just want to understand more on that part. So is it a monolithic or a microservices based architecture which was followed here?
It was monolithic architecture. So initially we thought we'll do for the microservices, but then we had a little problem there, so we went on to the monolithic architecture.
Okay, because I do see there were many APIs that were being used as a part of backend calls, right? So
Yes.
that's what
Yes.
confused me, that how it is a monolithic then, because you already have an APIs, right? You're already building APIs, and that can be your microservice that can be running in the backend part. Because in monolithic you have only one service is running, right? One big jar file that you run and deploy, and that's all it runs, right?
Yes, sir. We actually used only one microserver. Initially, we thought we'll do for 3 different microservers. So we started off coding in that architecture only with 3 different microservers. But then we faced a little issue during the deployment, so there we had to do little changes. So that's when we shifted. And also we were initially we started with MySQL. We were using MySQL database, and again we had an issue with deployment in Azure, so that's why we shifted to pgadmin. So there was all
Okay.
we had a little obstacles here and there, so we had to change accordingly.
Okay.
Okay. So any other feedback, sir?
I think overall it's looked good, and I think you guys would have learned a lot. So yeah, I think this was a good presentation and a very neat project.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Ravi. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
This is
Thanks,
Simcha
everyone.
from
Thank you.
Radian. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.